There's something deeply beautiful about kindness. It connects us, it heals, but when kindness morphs into a mask, when nice becomes a prison, we lose ourselves. Today, I want to talk about the quiet danger of becoming too nice, because sometimes what we call being nice is actually self-abandonment in disguise. It's not about blaming ourselves, it's about getting honest. It's about recognizing when our goodness has started to cost us too much. It's about asking, at what point does being nice stop being kind and start being harmful to ourselves? This is where it often starts, with the small, quiet betrayal of your own boundaries. It's in those moments when someone asks for a favor, a task, a little more of your time, and you say, sure, while everything inside you clenches, your stomach knots, your chest tightens, your jaw hardens. That discomfort, it's your nervous system whispering, this is not okay. It's your body trying to protect you, trying to speak for you, before you silence it with another smile. But you say yes anyway, because saying no feels wrong, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because you're afraid of what they'll think. You justify it by telling yourself, it's just easier this way. It's not a big deal. I can handle it, but it is a big deal. Because over time, those little yeses stack up like bricks, building a wall between you and your own truth. This kind of people-pleasing doesn't look dangerous on the surface. In fact, it often gets rewarded. People call you generous, reliable, selfless. But deep down, you start to feel hollow, drained, even resentful, because you keep giving from a well that's slowly drying up. You're operating on emotional overdraft. What's worse? Each time you ignore your boundaries to keep others comfortable, you're teaching your nervous system that your discomfort doesn't matter. You're telling yourself that other people's needs are more important than your own peace. And eventually your body starts sending louder signals. Burnout, anxiety, chronic fatigue, even illness. This is your inner alarm system going off, screaming for you to start honoring yourself. Saying no is not mean. It's not selfish. It's a sacred act of self-respect. It's choosing integrity over image. It's choosing wholeness over temporary harmony. And the truth is, when you finally learn to listen to your body, when you start honoring that internal no, you don't become less kind. You become more honest, more grounded, more whole. Because real kindness includes you, and your no is just as holy as your yes. You say sorry when someone bumps into you. You apologize for asking questions. You say, I am sorry, before expressing a feeling, before stating a need, before entering a room. It becomes a reflex. Sorry for talking too much. Sorry I'm late. Sorry I need a minute. Sorry, this might sound stupid. It's like you're constantly shrinking, constantly trying to soften your presence to not be too much or too needy or too real. And the heartbreaking part, you probably don't even notice how often you do it. Because somewhere along the line, you learned this was safer. You learned that if you just stayed small, agreeable, and apologetic, maybe, just maybe, you wouldn't be rejected, attacked, or misunderstood. But apologizing for existing isn't humility. It's shame masquerading as politeness. It says, I don't believe I have the right to take up space. My needs are an inconvenience. My presence is a burden. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Somewhere deep inside, you might believe that being nice and accommodating will protect you. That if you're sweet enough, selfless enough, invisible enough, people will love you. But love that requires you to erase yourself isn't love. It's performance. It's emotional imprisonment dressed in politeness. What happens when we constantly apologize for existing? We begin to forget our own worth. We start censoring our voice before it even leaves our lips. We stop asking for what we need, not because we don't need it, but because we don't believe we deserve it. And we lose our ability to advocate for ourselves, to take up emotional space, to feel like we truly belong as we are. Here's the truth. You were never meant to walk on eggshells in your own life. You were never meant to make yourself palatable to keep the peace. You were not born to apologize for being human, for being real, for needing rest, or for having emotions that sometimes spill over. You're allowed to say, thank you for waiting, instead of sorry, I'm late. You're allowed to say, I have a question, instead of sorry, this might be dumb. You're allowed to exist without justification. Your presence is not a problem to be managed. It's a gift. And you don't need to shrink to be accepted. You don't owe the world an apology for being you. You feel the tension rising in a conversation. You sense the shift in energy, the discomfort, the disagreement lingering in the air. And what do? You smile, you nod, you change the subject, you swallow your truth. Because conflict, real, messy, unpredictable conflict terrifies you this way. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere in your story, conflict got paired with rejection, abandonment, or even danger. So now you do everything you can to avoid it. You make yourself small. You say what they want to hear. You let the other person win. You convince yourself it's not worth the fight. But here's what most people don't talk about. Avoiding conflict doesn't create peace. It creates inner war. Every time you silence yourself to avoid discomfort, you chip away at your sense of self. You build resentment inside while pretending everything is fine on the outside. You wear the mask of calm while your spirit is screaming, this isn't okay. This is not compassion. This is not maturity. This is survival. When you consistently avoid conflict, what you're really avoiding is the risk of being misunderstood, the risk of being disliked, the risk of being real. And so you choose false harmony over honest connection. You end up surrounded by people who don't actually know you because you've never given them the chance to. Here's the truth. Conflict is not inherently bad. Conflict is a bridge to understanding. It's where growth happens. It's where you say, this matters to me, and invite someone into your world. Yes, some people won't handle your truth well. Yes, some relationships might shift or fall away when you stop being agreeable and start being authentic. But would you rather be chronically exhausted from pretending or empowered from standing in your truth? Avoiding conflict might keep things quiet, but it won't keep them healthy. It won't build trust or intimacy or respect. It just builds distance between you and others, and worse, between you and yourself. Speaking your truth might ruffle feathers. It might cause tension, but it also causes healing. It brings clarity. It filters out what isn't aligned, and it tells the world, I matter too. So speak up, not with rage, not with cruelty, but with clarity, courage, and care. Because your voice isn't dangerous. Your truth isn't a threat. It's a lifeline to your freedom. You walk into a room and instantly, almost automatically, you scan for the emotional temperature. Who's upset? Who seems off? And before anyone even says a word, you start adjusting. You smile more. You soften your tone. You overextend. You step into the role of caretaker, peacemaker, emotional sponge. Why? because somewhere deep down, you believe it's your job to make sure everyone's okay. It may have started early in life. Maybe you had to manage someone else's moods to feel safe or loved. Maybe you were praised for being the good one, the one who never caused problems, the one who kept the peace. So now, as an adult, you equate emotional control with connection. You believe that if someone around you is upset, it must be your fault or your responsibility to fix. But here's what's rarely said. Being emotionally tuned in is a gift, but carrying what doesn't belong to you is a heavy burden. You end up sacrificing your own peace to preserve someone else's comfort. You absorb stress, anger, sadness that isn't yours. You tiptoe around people's triggers. You silence your own feelings to avoid upsetting someone. You feel guilt when people are unhappy, even when it has nothing to do with you. This isn't kindness. This is emotional overfunctioning, and it's exhausting. And what's more, it's unsustainable. You start losing the ability to discern, is this mine or theirs? You start shaping yourself to keep others calm. And in doing so, you start disappearing from your own life. Here's a truth that might feel radical. You are not responsible for other people's feelings. You are responsible for your behavior, your integrity, your words. But you are not responsible for managing someone else's emotional reality. You can be present without being consumed. You can care without caretaking. You can witness someone's pain without absorbing it into your bloodstream. Love doesn't mean overfunctioning. Empathy doesn't mean self-abandonment. And compassion doesn't mean carrying burdens that were never yours to begin with. You are allowed to say, I see that you're upset, I care, and I trust you to manage your feelings. You are allowed to set emotional boundaries, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. You don't need to rescue everyone. You don't need to fix what was never yours. And you don't need to earn love by sacrificing your own emotional safety. The most courageous thing you can do is let people feel what they feel while staying grounded in your own truth, because your peace matters too. And you were never meant to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're the giver, the helper, the one who shows up, checks in, sacrifices, stays late, holds space, and says, I've got it. You are the emotional support beam in so many people's lives. And yet, when the roles reverse, when someone tries to support you, you freeze. Maybe you change the subject. Maybe you brush off compliments. Maybe you feel uncomfortable when someone offers to pay, to help, to listen, to simply be there. And you think to yourself, they don't need to do that for me. I don't want to be a burden. I'll figure it out on my own. I'm fine. Always. I'm fine. But under that reflexive independence, under that constant giving and never receiving, there's usually something deeper, a belief that your worth is tied to being needed, not needing. A belief that love is something you earn through selflessness, through labor, through performance. Somewhere along the line, you internalize the message, I'm valuable when I'm useful, but too much when I'm vulnerable. And that is heartbreaking, because while giving is beautiful, sacred, and generous, so is receiving. So is saying, yes, thank you, I could really use that. So is allowing yourself to be cared for, seen, held, and helped. Here's the truth. When you struggle to receive, you deny others the gift of giving. You send the message that you're only worthy when you're emptying yourself out. You build relationships that are lopsided, where you become the reservoir and everyone else is the thirsty traveler. Eventually, you start to feel invisible, uncelebrated, unseen, not because others are selfish, but because you've made your own needs so small they go unnoticed. Receiving isn't weakness. Receiving is trust. It's letting love flow to you, not just through you. It's allowing yourself to be poured into, not because you're falling apart, but because you're worthy of rest, worthy of kindness, worthy of softness. You don't have to earn your right to be supported. You don't have to prove anything to be deserving of love. You don't have to carry it all alone to be respected. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who never need help. They're the ones who know when to open their hands and receive it. So the next time someone offers you care or compassion or kindness, pause, take a breath, and instead of pushing it away, Say, thank you, because you deserve to feel the fullness of love without guilt, without debt, without apology. You move through your days checking boxes, meeting expectations, showing up for others, yet somewhere inside, there's this quiet ache, this subtle question that whispers, does anyone really see me? You are present for everyone, yet you feel unseen. You are the one people call, the one they lean on, the one who never says no. And slowly, sometimes so slowly you don't even notice, it becomes your identity. You're the dependable one, the agreeable one, the easy to be around one. But in all the pleasing, the adjusting, the shrinking, you start to vanish. And here's the painful irony. The more you try to be what others want, the less they actually see you. Not because they don't care, but because you've buried your true self under layers of politeness, perfection, and silent sacrifice. You stop expressing your opinions because you don't want to rock the boat. You stop asking for what you need because